Well, hi there everybody. Here we go again with another device to be tested. I'm going to be looking at this item here. It is a digital multimeter, and I will be giving you my opinion on it. I'm not going to get deep into teaching you how to use it, those kind of things. I'm not going to get heavy into the specifications, and all that stuff is on the website where this is being sold at Amazon. You can go there and look at the stuff yourself and see if you're interested in that kind of thing. There's also a complete manual on the website of Sonova, who provided this to me, and you can download that manual and read that in depth, and it'll tell you how to do a lot of things on it. Again, I'm not going to show you how to operate it. I've spent 47 years in the automotive industry as an automotive electrical technician, air conditioning specialist, and a general technician, and I've used a lot of these. Okay. This one here, I have no idea how good it's going to be, but I'm going to show you what I've got here. I will be taking it and playing with it myself between shots on this thing, come back and giving you what I feel about it. It'll come wrapped in a little plastic bag here. Now, I don't know if they would ship this just like that or not. I've seen stuff like ship that way and come out just fine, but I purchased this thing with a number of other items, and they were all in a large box. I would imagine that this will probably come in a box anyways, but at least I would hope so. So here's what we got. This is the meter. It's called the Ragu. It's the 17B Plus, which is actually the name of another company's meter also, which looks a lot like this. The Fluke meter looks a lot like this. Okay, it's got a nice looking meter with a silicon type case on it. Feels good in the hand. That opens nicely. The stand sets fine. Operating is just great. Then this is an important thing. If you're working on a table or something, on a counter or a workbench that's a metal, not metal, but you wouldn't be using metal is, but a wooden one or what have you. A lot of these you'll turn them and the whole thing will just spin. This thing here, it stays put, which is nice, which is something you really want to see. It comes with a manual here, and the manual basically has just information as to how to get to this site here. I will actually provide a website address at the end of this review. I'm told from a previous review I saw on this that this does not come up with the proper books for you and what have you. If I understand, it comes up with nothing. So I will provide an actual site. I got that from the people who provided this. They actually gave that address to us, so we can pass it on to you people. Comes with a battery, and I'll be using this for the testing purposes, but if I'm going to keep this thing and use this myself, I'll probably upgrade the battery. It's just my thing. I just never know how long these batteries have been sitting around. And there's the test sleeves, which initially look pretty nice. That leaves me to get one stuck in the thing. They get a nice feel to them. They're fairly heavy. They are rated 1000 volts category 3, 10 amp, which is good because you can use these things for working on testing machinery and what have you that's stable and stabilized machinery that more than household. Category 2 would be the stuff you find around a house. Category 3, you can take this in a little bit more. I would like to have seen a shroud that would come up to here, maybe a retractable shroud. So if you are using these guys, be careful. You can be testing something and short circuit something, do damage to yourself, damage to the device here, or damage to the machine or the stuff you're testing. So that's where we stand on the initial look of the thing. I'm pleased with what I see. It's got a nice feel to it. A lot of these things, you'll twist them, and when you twist them, they'll make all sorts of noises and stuff. This seems like a nice solid plastic. Nice solid. Very difficult to put it in between. Alright, let me test it out. Let me get some information on it. Let me play with it a while. I'll get back to you. I'm going to share what I found. Before I go into any of the descriptions of this device or any of the things I've done with it or what my findings are in it, I do want to caution you, you're dealing with electricity. and it can be very dangerous. You have to use your own judgment, your own caution. What I'm showing you here has nothing to do with teaching you how to use this thing or any of that kind of stuff. It's just going to just explain what's on it, what my views are on this thing, how I perceive this as a usable device. As far as you using it, be sure you understand how to use it. Be sure you understand the safety factors, and never forget the fact, especially when you're dealing with home electricity, never forget the fact that you are dealing with electricity and it can be lethal in an instant. Working in an automobile, even though it's only 12 volts, can be lethal. You short circuit something underneath the dash that isn't protected, and you're going to have yourself a fire. If you're stuck in there and can't get out, what do we got? More than a car damage. It can't replace you. It can replace the car. But be sure you understand what you're doing. Be sure you understand how to do it, and you can Google it. There are plenty of places sites that will tell you and explain to you exactly what each of these features does, how to do it, how to use it. There's a ton of them out there. And I've done this for 47 years working on automobiles, plus a number of years, probably 20 years, maybe more, working on vintage radios. And I don't know everything. Every so often something comes up and I have to go and find out what it is. A good example is this voltage alert thing. None of my meters have it. And I will explain later what that is, but none of them had it. And I had to basically go on and Google it to find out exactly what that meant. So even guys who know what they're doing still take caution. And if I take caution after 47 years of working with electronics and stuff, you folks that are just beginning, please take some real caution to this. Well, first things first, let's get down to something that I noticed right away when I was getting ready to put the battery in here. I'm used to seeing, when you look into a battery compartment, I'm used to seeing connections that will match these 12 volt, these 9 volt batteries, that or some kind of a indication in there. And at first I thought there was no indication, but there really is. Right here, you will see a plus. Right here, you'll see the negative. So you basically want to look for the plus on the side of the battery here, and there's a negative on the side of the battery. And just going to put the bottom in first, pop the top in, and then you will put the cover back on it. The cover has a machine screw, and there's a little area right here where a metal sleeve has been put in here that is threaded, so that you're going to be taking this off and off as time goes on and you wear this battery out. When you are working on it, if you were just having the self-tapping screws, you'd tear this up and it'd be a mess. This is nice to see. I do know I've seen a lot of them that do not have this. They just have the regular little self-tapping screws, and it makes it a little tougher to deal with, especially after about the third or fourth time of replacing the battery. And I use them a lot. In my business, I use them a lot. So this is a nice little feature to see, and it's just a little extra thought. And on an economy price unit, to see that, that's very nice. Let me tell you about some of the features this thing has on it, some of the scales and various items you can test on it. It's got voltage, both alternating current and direct current, millivolts. It's got a continuity tester and a diode tester here, and you toggle through to choose which one you want to work with. A good example is there's a diode tester, I'm sorry, and then the rest of these ranges are various degrees of resistance that you want to do. And the same thing goes through for any of these others. You have multiple uses for each area. And moving on, we've got a megahertz reading here. We've got amperage, both direct current and alternating current. We have milliamps here. This is a nice one down here. We have a voltage alert. And what this does, let me show you what this thing does. I'm going to have to maneuver this a little bit. But as I move this thing up close to the presence of electricity, it squawks for me. Not a bad thing to have. I know I've had many a times when I've been trying to fix something around the house, wasn't quite sure whether or not I had any voltage, had to be very, very careful to go in and test on something. And it's great for diagnosing a problem. If you've got a circuit that's running from point A to point B in the house, and you're at point B and you got a problem there, but point A is working, you can move this through and look at the various wiring areas across the house, various connectors, various plugs, switches, those kind of things, and see the presence of current. If there's no current there, now you know where you're working from that point there back to the original point where you did have current. So that's a nice feature to have. I wish it was a 12-volt feature because I could have used those in the days of fixing cars, but they didn't have that, and what we would do is just inject a signal through it. Now, as to what this can be used on, it is Category 3, and the best thing I could say for you to figure out the categories is to go online and just Google, the various categories for electrical devices, and then it'll tell you what you can do and what you can't do with it. Again, if you're going to get into some of the heavy stuff, I would change these to some other connectors that have some little protection on this area here. But if you're going to use this for just your everyday things, a good example is I collect vintage radios, and I will use this, as I have many of my other ones. I'll use this on some of my vintage radios when I'm restoring them. The item is good for today's vehicles. Today's vehicles looking for 10 megohm impedance, input impedance, and this thing here fits that range very nicely. So you can use this on your computer-driven automobiles. I remember when I was working for Chrysler back in the days when they first came out with them, one of the awards we had each year was what they call the Gold Tool Award. And they actually gave us a digital multimeter to use on the cars, but unfortunately it wasn't the 10 megohm type, and it was damaging cars. So they basically had to tell us not to use that. Fortunately, I didn't use it. I just packed it away and put it with other trophies and stuff I had, and I used the meter that I had at the time, and I didn't have any problems. But I do know guys who have damaged cars with them. So if you're working on a computer-driven car, this will do the job on it. It'll do a lot of readings for the various items, such as the megahertz one. It'll read some of the things that you don't get on a normal multimeter. Some of the things that car has, it's got things that are cycled, and you need to check the cycling and how fast they're cycling. That'll do it for you. Some of the other things it's got here too, which is really interesting, is it has a select here for you, or not select here, but a hold button here. You push this hold button, and it'll actually hold the reading you've just had. Okay, so let's say you're working inside something. You're in a cavity in a cupboard, or you're under the dash of an automobile. You can take this thing, get a reading, set it outside, get a reading, just reach out and hit the hold button, and it's just going to hold it. See? I'm done. I just did that just by holding my hands together. That creates, you can come out and now see what the reading is. It also has a min-max right here, which means that as you're going into it, you set the min-max, you do your test on it, then you can come back in and toggle through this, and it'll tell you the maximum reading you got and the minimum reading you got. Trust me, a lot of times working under the dash of an automobile, which I did a lot of, this is a nice feature to have. Trying to look at this while you're contacting surface underneath could be quite dangerous. This way here, I can look directly at my work I'm doing, make my contacts underneath there, go back and look at the thing and see what the readings are. It's a nice feature to have. It also has if you hold the hold button down, it will then turn on a light. The light will come on, stay on for about 15 seconds or so, and then it will extinguish. It also has the feature of shutting down automatically if you forget to turn it off. And it runs about 14-15 minutes. It'll beep at you about 5 times, and then a minute later, it'll give you one final beep and then shut off. I have had times where I've left on a Friday at work, left my device sitting in the car, forgot that I had left it on. I had been called away or whatever it was. Forgot that I was left on, come back on Monday morning, and the batteries were dead, or much, much lower, where at a point where I couldn't trust them. This feature is nice to have on these things, and this thing has it, which is real good, and it works great. So far, it's working really nice. I haven't had any real chances to test it, but I did want to show you the situation of putting the batteries in it, and I did want to kind of quickly go over what it does. Now let's get to some of the likes and dislikes. One of the things I like about this a lot is it fits my hand pretty good. I've got an average size hand, no big meat thing and no little tiny thing. It's just an average hand, and it fits in it very nicely. It is tapered down in this area here, and it does fit in here very, very well. I like that about it. I do like this kickstand. This kickstand stores nicely, comes out very nicely, and it stands, and it doesn't tend to tip any on you when you're working with it. Pretty much stays where it's supposed to be. Those are two of the things I really like. Another thing I like is this meter reading. Get this thing to zero itself out. There you go. It's large, very easy to see. Much easier to see and much nicer than my go-to meter. So this thing here would work real nice in it. My go-to meter is about this size here. It's smaller, and of course you couldn't have a large readout in that. But this thing is just wonderful. The readout is great, and it's crystal clear. The light, the backlight works beautiful. Look at that. You can really see it. I did some work underneath the dash on one of the vehicles I was working on, and I had to go to the meter with a light to see what my readings were because it was dark in that area. I actually used a little catch on the back here to hang it up and put a string with a knot on it, a loop on it, and then looped it up underneath there, and it held up just very nicely, and I was able to read it. The only thing I don't like about the light thing is it just doesn't stay on long enough. I'd like to see it stay on for a minute, because that gives you time to do something. I had to reach over from underneath the dash, click this thing on, and then then get my hands back in the area to do the reading. A little tough at times, but you get used to it, and it's just a minor thing, nothing really big. Another thing I don't care for it is the size. It is a little large. I do like a smaller meter when I work in tight locations, but when I'm working anywhere else outside, this is better than the small meter I have, my go-to meter, because when it's set up, I can see where it is at a glance without a problem. It doesn't get hidden behind anything. You drop a rag or a tool or something, it usually drops down low here. My smaller meter actually gets covered sometimes when I can't see it. I have to find out where I put it. This thing here is quite easy to see, and it works very well. Another thing I would probably like to see, well, I would like to see being an air conditioning technician, is I'd like to see temperature reading on it. However, to do that, we'd have to sacrifice something. And the one thing we'd probably have to sacrifice is this volt alert. I don't do a lot of AC work around the house and stuff with them, but when I do, I think I'm going to like that. Given the choice of this or the temperature reading, if I'm using this in the shop where I'm working, because I do AC work, I'd like to see the temperature readings, but overall, I'd rather see this. I think it's laid out pretty nice. Matter of fact, one of the big main manufacturers has a model they also call the 17B, and it looks a lot like this. They do have the temperature reading here as opposed to this voltage alert. Voltage alert thing is very usable, and I think most of you out there will be using it because air conditioning is something that most of you folks won't be dealing with. So basically the layout of the thing, everything in it's nice. I love the way it's set up. These probes are very nice. They work very well. I was real happy with the probes. I would like to see a shield on here, but that's a small thing. And probes are going to be an expendable item anyways. So when they do go, the next ones I will get will have the shield on it. One other thing I did want to point out, the probes did say that they were category 3. This thing here actually has written down on it, it says category 4 at 600 volts. So different set of probes, and you could probably use it for anything. Bottom line is it's a nice unit. Question is would I buy it? Well, of course I'd buy it. I think if I had known how good this was and I was going out to buy this or my high dollar meter, I think I'd probably give this a shot. It works very well. It works better than any of the other meters I have. I have a number of them. I have one that works the same as good as this, and that's my high dollar meter. The rest of my meters, they work. Some work as good as this, some not as good. But this thing here, I'm actually going to use this for a while. I'm retired now, so I don't work in the shop anymore. But I do a lot of electrical work around the area here, helping friends and stuff. I've got some neighbors. I've helped them with their drivability problems and what have you in their computerized cars. I'm going to use this. I am going to use this. I'm going to trust it. I will take along my other meter just as a backup, and I usually always have 2 meters anyways, because you always want to have one for if you get a reading you don't trust, which occasionally happens. It's nice to have a second one to go in and confirm it. But this is going to be my go-to meter for a while. I'm going to use this right up front and see how it goes. I may sometime down the road do another report on it, another review, let you know how it holds up. But if I were going to go out and buy one, I'd buy it definitely. It's a lot cheaper than the high dollar ones. It performs well with it, and I don't think you can beat it really. So with that, I want to thank the people from Ragu and Cronova for providing this for my my review here for the tests and what have you. Don't get the idea that because this was given to me free that I'm going to be leaning any one side. If I have a problem with something, I won't tell you it. because eventually you'll find out anyways. So, and it's the only way to do it. So that's what a review is about. Give you a true, honest opinion of something. And that's what I'm doing here. I think you'd like this, though. Funny name, though. I just, received Ragu, you think of spaghetti sauce people. But other than that, this thing is a great piece of equipment, and I would go for it any day. Thank you for watching. Oh, and one more, by the way, before I go. This is the manual that comes with it. The manual that comes with it has this here, and you can actually go to this site. And at first, it wasn't working. It is working now, and I tested it last night. I will also leave at the end of this video. There'll be an address where you can actually go and get the full manual for this item. And another really nice thing is these people will actually send you in your email after you make the purchase. You'll get an email, so keep an eye out for it if you purchase one. You'll get an email from them, and it'll have a link right to the manual. You can download the manual right off of their website, and it's a 12-page manual, and it's pretty extensive. It does not teach you how to operate one of these things. It just tells you how it operates. So if you want to learn how to operate one you don't know, I would recommend you get that. Click on some of those YouTube videos. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of those guys are very good at explaining how this works. I may even someday put a video together like that. But in the meantime, check with some of those guys' videos here if you don't really know how this works. One other last thing is, this is a true RMS one. So you guys working with AC voltages and stuff, this thing here is going to be an accurate reader for you. And again, thank you for watching.